Hi, welcome back to Simply Thinking. Today's topic is about having kids. Is it worth it? Um, how do you define worth in terms of bringing a human life? It's a tricky one, right? Is it from an emotional fulfillment for you, bringing up kids, watching them grow, passing on your legacy? Is it about cultural and religious expectations or companionship in old age, having someone to care and support you later in life? Um, how do you define worth in this case? It's not as easy as it sounds, and it's deeply personal and subjective. And everyone will have a different opinion on this. Um, and it won't. People might say, okay, fine, having kids. If I Google right now, population decline, population peaking, finite resources, people focus on their careers, there will be lots of articles, both on the left and right political agenda, saying why is good, why is bad. I even saw an article the other day saying that only the best performing so-called humans would be able to procreate going forward because they'll be able to afford it. Um, that's not necessarily the case. I see people in my own friendship group that I mean, in my eyes, and even their own eyes, as they mentioned it to me, they aren't able to, from a financial point of view, to raise multiple kids, and yet they still do it. So it's not about having the financial means. It's more about, do you want to do it? Because if you do want to do it, then there is no barrier, right? If you put your mind to it, whatever it may be, you will succeed. It will take time and effort and hardship and tears, but you come out at the end of it thinking, yes, it was worth it. It worked because I dedicate my time to it. So um, it's whatever you read on the news, it always take it with a pinch of salt. Even this own audio that I'm recording right now, take it with a pinch of salt. It's coming from a person who's got a kid, who's got a partner, who's got time to take care of their own child, and he's got a full-time job, right? So it's definitely different for everyone and everybody. But as I look at my son, as I say bye to him and I leave him at the daycare to go to work, I realize that for me, even though I never really wanted to have kids, I never wanted to be a dad, or never imagined myself to be a dad. It's not that I didn't want it. I was open to it if it happened, but it was never like at the top of my list, you know. But it happened, and I don't look back saying I regret. In fact, I'm like, yeah, this is definitely one of those things where you look back and you're like, I'm glad it happened. And in fact, most things you do in your life, in 10, 20 years, when you look back, it will be worth it because you made that decision. Making a decision is the first step to not regretting anything. It could be any decision: going out, staying in, having a drink, not having a drink, whatever you may do within moderation, good balance, it will be a good decision because you made that decision, right? Sitting around, sitting on your hands and not doing anything, for me personally, is the worst thing you can do, because life is passing by and you're not doing anything with it. You're just sitting around doing nothing, which it's fine for you to do, certain days of the week. But if you do it for years, then you miss the point, right? Life is all about challenges, whatever it may be, going through emotions. That's what makes you human, right? It's not living a perfect life. It's just living life, whatever it may be. And there will be challenges. I'm sure the ultra wealthy billionaires, millionaires, they have their challenges, albeit very different from our own challenges, but they have their challenges and they still go through human emotions, and they're human. Although they've been successful or lucky at certain points in their life, they're still human. They'll still go through challenges. Um, so, but why are we all a bit unsure about having kids nowadays? Is it that we are focused on the financial costs, the time commitments, the emotional stress? What are the challenges that we have to consider? That we look on the news and we look, yeah, that's actually a fair point, because we went from in the after the war baby boom, the baby boomers, right? Where there was no, it wasn't a question so much of having kids. You just had kids, And then later, with the birth control pill, uh, women start to have more choice when they want to have kids and if they want to have kids. And so having that control definitely had helped them basically engage into the workforce, which then led to women prioritizing careers as well as men, and delaying having kids until their 40s and having to rely on medical procedures to have kids. I know people in my social group that have had lots of IVFs to try and conceive kids, and successfully and sometimes unsuccessfully. Um, but it's one of those things where it's changed, right? And however you've perceived having kids or not having kids, it has definitely changed every decade, right? Another analogy is, we were all told to go to university to get a job, and nowadays there's, if you Google again on the news, is it worth going to university? There will be lots of articles saying probably not. If you know what you want to do, and you manage to find an apprenticeship, you're better off going that route because university is not for everybody. Or you might see that the overqualification problem in the UK or the developed world in the US. There's lots of people qualified, but there's not enough jobs for those qualified people. In fact, there are lots of jobs for people that didn't go to university, but because we're having more and more graduates every year, then those jobs that it require you to have hands-on experience, there aren't enough people fulfilling those jobs. So there's an imbalance of people and the I want to say developed jobs, but it's not developed jobs. It's jobs that require a university degree. But even then, even if you go to university and you get a degree, I mentioned in a previous audio, um, sometimes it's not about having the degree. It's just the way we've constructed our society. It's more about having a skill. If you have a skill, and however you acquire that skill, if you're able to solve problems that society seems to add value to those problems, then that's how you're going to be able to get a job and make a life for yourself. So go check out my video about is it worth going to university. It's definitely not for everybody. And now coming back to the kids topic, it's definitely not for everyone to have kids. If you think that you want to prioritize your time in pursuing a hobby, traveling, or you can't afford it, it being the baby, then whatever fears you may have, then and that's preventing you from having a baby, then it's on you to make that decision. But what I will leave it here is that, as my wife likes to put it, having a child in terms of financial costs is as expensive as you make it, right? And what I mean by that is when you see on social media people sending their kids to boarding schools or international travels or to the best restaurants, giving them the latest gadgets, that's got a cost to it, right? But do you need to give your kids those things? Yes, it would be nice. But if you wanted to have a kid for an emotional fulfillment or companionship or passing on your legacy, you don't necessarily need to give all those things to teach your kid the value of what it's like to be a human, right? Um, but it's expensive from a point of view that, especially the first years where you have to work and you have to send your kid to daycare and you don't have family around to help you with daycare costs, then there is a hit on that side. And if you're in a developed world where there are social programs from the government that helps with daycare, then that definitely helps. That goes a long way. We definitely use that program. From a time commitment, when you're at work, you're working. When you're not at work, instead of watching a YouTube video or a movie or whatever it may be, you will have to spend time entertaining your child, playing with them, building that friendship and bond with your child, which for me personally is better than what I was doing in my free time before, which is exactly those things: watching movies, spending time, lots of time playing maybe video games or just reading random articles on the internet. And now instead of spending time doing that, I have and enjoy spending time with my son. But like I said, everything you read on social media, on news outlets, or even his own audio, take it with a pinch of salt, because there's always there's always an internal bias, or there's always a different perspective in how that person has lived their lives or written that article to how you perceive it or how you've lived your own life. Um, so for me, it's definitely from a time commitment, it hasn't been that much of an impact. The impact that I felt the most was on the emotional side, especially when it comes to to sleeping. Sleeping can impact your mood, especially in the first year of the baby's life. They don't sleep for an entire night, right? Because their stomach is not big enough to house enough food for them to last through the night. Maybe it might house 3 or 4 hours worth of food, and then for which time you have to feed them again, and that interrupts your sleep, which can affect your mood. And at the first year of the baby's life, I found it extremely difficult to adapt to the sleeping patterns. But then, yeah, after that, it was smooth sailing. Yeah, sometimes they may have some tantrums, or they may misbehave in terms of making too much noise or not wanting to go a certain direction. But that you adapt to that very quickly. You get used to it very quickly. Sometimes, if the baby is throwing a tantrum, I even don't listen. I see him crying, or throwing all the books out of the shelf, but I know it's just because I refuse to give that biscuit. So I completely ignore it. I just let the baby go through its emotions, and then come back later and give him a hug or a kiss, and read the book. But it's really, for me, the only impact to my life, especially in the first year, was the sleep. But for a financial point of view, I thankfully we live in a country where, depending on how much you earn, you can get government support, which we've leveraged. Time commitment, like I said, when we're at work, we're working, and out of work, we have to spend time with the kids, which I enjoy, going to the park, um, playing, building Legos, teaching, learn. I even learned things that I had forgotten about, geography, history, that I have to teach my son through reading the books in different languages, which helps him and helps me learn the words I had forgotten. But yeah, so like I said, I'm just telling you stuff that I've gone through and I found difficult, or I found easy, or I found that whatever the news outlets or social media was telling me was completely false, and it was a perspective from a very small, minority of people that have lots of influence on these platforms. And yes, so like I said, not everybody's suited to be a parent. If there was a test, a national test, I mean, we have national tests for everything. For getting a job, you have to go to university and pass tests. To drive a car, you need to pass tests. Uh, Sometimes you have to get a passport in different countries, you have to pass tests. So why not having kids? Why can't you pass a test? I would have failed that test if I had to do a test from a sleep perspective. Um, but I think, yeah, especially if you, I have friends that study psychology, and they say that if you have the so-called internal demons, where you have lots of trauma, or you have lots of unsolved issues with your parent or your childhood, you should certainly try to solve some of them before you consider having kids, because if you don't, then those problems you have internally within yourself will somehow leak and pass onto your life as a parent to your child, and you don't really want your child to have the same issues that you had, right? Um, I certainly didn't solve all my issues, all my problems. Like I said, um, I like to sleep. I like to enjoy my time with my friends and doing sports, um, and my relationship with my parents, especially with my biological father, wasn't the best growing up, and it still remains unresolved. But I'm aware of those issues, which I guess, as most people would say, as cheesy as it sounds, it's the first step is recognizing the issue. And so whenever I feel like I'm, short temper, or I think, oh, that's not my problem, I focus back, I reflect back to how my father would behave, and how I would like to be a better father than my father was. And so just being aware of that is really good, for, just to start. And if you, yeah, I think, like, if you're really unsure or you really don't want to have kids because you think it will be an impact on the world, it will be an impact on your life, or you're borderline, if you're a woman, your mid 40s, early 40s, and there might be a high risk to your pregnancy, or you're a guy in your 40s and you think, would I like to be an older dad in my 60s? My kid will be 10 years old, full of energy, and I'll be in my 60s, about to retire. Would that be a good life to my child? Do I want that? Um, the answer is there is no right answer. It's whatever you decide, right? It's what you want to do with your life, and if you choose to have kids, just so you know, it's no different to getting a project that you have no idea about until you start doing that project. Even if you have the best qualities, the best skills, and you get thrown a project at work, you have no idea what it is about, and you have to learn on the go. It's really like that. You can't be a dad or you can't be a mom until you become a mom or a dad. It's just like that. Um, and it goes to the same with step parents. You can't become a step parent or a dad or a mom until you become that role. But there's alternatives to parenthood. You can adopt a pet, or you can adopt a career, a hobby, adopt traveling, making lots of use of your free time to travel somewhere else if you can afford it. You can do community work to better your neighborhood. There's lots of things that you can do. It doesn't necessarily mean that you won't have companionship or emotional fulfillment, or you won't meet the expectations of your religion or your culture. It will just be a different way of living life. And that's also correct. So already, to make this audio longer than it needs to be, if you haven't learned anything from today's audio, just remember this, that there is no right answer. And if you choose to have kids, great. You've got a new challenge. If you choose to not have kids, great. You still have a new challenge. What to do with your time, what to do with your hobbies, what to do with your life. Everybody's figuring out. Whoever you see outside, going to work, or very well dressed person going to work, you can smell the perfume when they pass by you. They're still figuring out what they want to do with their life. I'm sure there'll be a time in the week, in the month, that they will just sit back, reflect, like, what am I doing? What do I want to do with my life? Where am I going? You're not alone if you're thinking like that. Everybody thinks like that. Um, and it's healthy. It's healthy to question, am I going the right direction? Am I doing what I want to do? What else do I want to do? Because if you don't, um, life will just pass you by and you won't even notice it. You blink, a year will pass. You blink again, 5 years has passed. Sorry, I wanted to end this audio, but it seems to be dragging on. But I remember going to university, and it's been 10 years since I've gone to university. And I'm not even joking when I say it has been so fast. It passed by so quickly that you don't even comprehend how fast it goes. The year has closed, and I remember thinking, wow, it seems like it was yesterday I was going to university, and 10 years has passed. Where have I gone? So yeah, just remember that whenever you're thinking, should I have kids? Should I not have kids? Where am I going? What am I doing? Is it too late? Is it too early? Everybody's thinking that. Everybody's going through the same hoops and same obstacles in life, just at different times, at different points in their life, right? Everybody's got their own journey. But yeah, so having said that, it's your own personal decision. I definitely think it was a good thing for me to have a kid. I am trying my best to do the best I can for my child. Whenever I see him playing with his toys, I try and join him and build the toys, make noises, build things that he otherwise wouldn't have dreamed about. But there's a possibility of making a crown out of Lego that was built to make a car. But you see what I mean? Like, just trying to make a little bit of an effort to be a different parent to the parents that you had. And that's a good thing. The childhood that you had will be very different to the childhood that your kids will have if you choose to have kids. And that's because the society changes, your work changes, your life changes, and that's good. Nowadays you have to worry about video games and access to the internet. Whereas in our parents' generation, they had to worry about kidnappers, kidnapping us from playing on the streets, playing football on the streets. But nowadays there are no kids playing football on the streets. There are just maybe grooming gangs online, so you have to worry about the internet access, but then they have to have internet access to do their homework, to do their research, or whatever it may be. So you have to have parental control. So there's different worries that we have to have nowadays that our parents didn't have. And it's just a different childhood. I know I grew up in the countryside in Brazil, and growing up, I used to think that watching American movies, oh, they have such a good life. They can drive anywhere they want. They go to shopping malls. There is no shopping mall in my town, in my village. There is no car. It's just a horse, and pastures and cows. But looking back, I wouldn't have changed anything. Even though growing up, I used to think I would change. If I had the choice, I would change everything. I'll go to a developed nation. If they say, oh, it's high stress, high job, the job pays well, but it's high stress, you have to work 80 hours a week. I'll work 80 hours a week, no worries. But nowadays, I think, well, life back in the farm was so much easier and so slow moving. Why was I complaining as a teenager? Growing up in a farm, there was nothing to do. There was so much to do. You just your imagination. But like I said, my childhood won't be the same as my son's childhood. It'll be extremely different. And it's just for me to accept that and try to be a better parent than I thought I would be. And so that's the message for you. If you're choose to not have kids, great. Think of something to do with your time, because there's lots of time for you to pass by, and you have to improve yourself, or you have to do something in your life. If you choose to have kids, also great. You have to now just try to make an effort to be there for your kid whenever they're bored or have lots of energy, and they're throwing tantrums. It's an 18 to 20 year project, and it's a good project if you choose to do so. I've chosen to do it, and I think I've learned lots. I've gone through stresses, emotional stresses, and I've got very happy when their first step, their first word, and I've got very mad when they're crying nonstop and I don't know what to do. But it's a nice thing watching them grow. But like I said, not everybody needs to be a parent. Not everybody wants to be a parent. Not everybody is able to be a parent, and that's okay. It's a personal choice, and it's a one that it will be talked on the news forever about population decrease, increase, and don't let the social media platforms or the news outlets dictate how you live your life. Make your choices by yourself. With consulting your family, of course, and your partner. But don't let people say, "Oh, you're too young, or you're too old, or you're too poor, or you're too rich," or, just make your choices. Read some news to be informed of how society is thinking. A few people in society are thinking, but don't be too influenced by what other people think. If people are having kids and you don't want to have kids, don't. And the same applies the other way. Just live your life the best you can, however you can. All right.